necessarily we should value it, but we need to value it. Everything that you can think about is a factor in the paradigm of our current society. Everything that happened before then has become this. There is no getting around that. That's a logical thought, but it is one that kind of requires a little closer thought. We need to accept the fact that despite the fact that we live in a digital age where our surroundings are whatever we choose them to be with a simple click, but our ancestors' surroundings were completely stable, immutable. They couldn't change that. Our ancestors' surroundings were bare surroundings, the sea, the sky, and the desert. Not things filled with too many distractions, I guess, like trees. It's weird to call a tree a distraction, but when you think of it from that point of view, you start to understand that the Arabs of our previous generations were more people who were challenged by a horizon rather than the environment with close to hand. And I personally think that that creates a sort of mind, a different kind of mind than one that comes from the forest or from the marsh or the swamp. It creates a mind that is always wishing to know what's at the edge. Why is there no edge? And I feel like it would be very foolish of us not to look a little deeper into that, not to truly examine not only our environments, but the thoughts that come to us due to those environments, and see what we can discover about each other and about our land. It's ironic that the storm just happened, because one of my beliefs is that you can only find the true soul of a person in an extreme situation, and the fact that all of you brave the storm to come to what is essentially a meaningless debate says, I hope, a lot about your characters and a lot about how you think about these kinds of things. I'd also like to say, we are sort of prone to thinking about our cultural heritage, and I'm prone to thinking about the environment as something being a result of the sea and the desert. But I'd like to bring to your attention something that some of you may have not fully realized. As big a part of our culture as the desert and the sea is the stars. The Arab culture is one of the earliest astronomical cultures, and Al-Ajari, one of the most famous astronomers in the Middle East, himself was sent away by his parents to a group of Bedouin when he was 7 years old, just to learn about the stars. I think, to me, it's the most enchanting part of our culture, and I believe that it is our first step in reclaiming what used to be ours. And so, without further ado, if anyone would like to take the floor.
Many different things, but one thing that was raised in the beginning tonight was what made Kuwait what it is way back when. Even though we had no natural resources, and I would argue that we have and had one very important natural resource back in the day that we still have today, which is location. We're at the tip of the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf, the Persian Gulf. We're at a very important crossroads between sea trade and land trade. So yes, that's what made us a center for boat building, fishing, pearl diving, trade. And if we need to look to the past to reclaim and rebuild our sustainability today and in the future, location will be a key part of it. So from the many things I heard,
I agree with you, and I think that location is important. But you have to make it at the end, because Basra was as important, actually more important than Kuwait for a much longer period of time. But at some point they came under the Ottoman Empire and they lost their capacity to actually compete. And the Kuwaitis stepped in. So again, it's about timing, it's about organization, it's about community. And I think that strong sense of community that Kuwait had, of everybody working together for the same purpose. All of our livelihoods were tied. It was the right moment, the right time. And I think, yes, it's a necessary factor to have location, but it's not sufficient to make us who we were. Yeah, I agree.
Right, it's funny that having you guys brought up location and Basra, because today I was just thinking about the same topic, and I was thinking that the way Kuwait is packaged as a nation among another group called the GCC, which is kind of not, I mean, that was enforced on us in the 80s as a political entity, the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and it was, I was wondering why. I mean, people keep on saying that Kuwait developed much earlier than the rest of the GCC nations, and my answer was that maybe it's because our culture, our heritage, our proximity to Basra, to the north, and incorporating the trading actually played a larger factor than maybe other areas. So
Definitely. I think of all the countries in the GCC, I think Kuwait and Bahrain had the biggest trading, also Oman, sorry. So you can't really consider the UAE or even Saudi when you're talking about long distance trade to India or even to Africa. I think Kuwait definitely was a pioneer in this, along with Oman and to a lesser degree Bahrain. So definitely.
Something that I've observed since moving to the Middle East, I've been here about 4.5 years, is that trade is a big factor, but also and combined with location, and identity here is very much where you're from. Georgia and I are both British, so like we can identify. I can see her and go, yeah, like we're from the same place. And yet, like being here, like a big part is where you're from, but then there's also the subgroups. So you've got your Bedouins and your Hadha, you've got big expat communities. So there's some expats, like Georgia has lived here for a while?
No, since I was 15.
Okay, so she's lived here longer than I have, and is quite assimilated into the culture, as am I, but that's, I think, because we want to be as well. When you look at heritage is both short-term and long-term. So, like my long-term heritage, like if I go back a few generations, is Scottish and Irish. But I don't recognise those cultures because I've never lived there. My family have been in England for long enough that if I sat down with someone Irish, I wouldn't really be able to recognise, or be a part of what they are. Whereas I've been in the Gulf for long enough and worked for a cultural publication now, and I've been very involved in the society. So I'd say my more recent heritage is probably here. And when you look at heritages, there's so many subgroups as well. So something that we looked at in this issue, which is why I asked Faisal to ask Laila if we could bring the issue, is that we look at mipsters. So mipster is the Muslim hipster. And it's a fairly new terminology, but it's a huge group that's really growing in America. Muslims who have left the Middle East, moved over to the West, and still want to feel a part of their heritage. And perhaps they are grouped into the country they're from, but also their religious heritage. So there's, for me, when you talk about heritage, which I think is the point of tonight, is that there's so many different types of heritage and clan. That someone will say, like, yeah, I'm Middle Eastern, then I'm from Khalij, then I'm from Kuwait, and then I'm from this section, and then I'm from this tribe. And something that I really like about this society is there's still a huge sense of belonging to a certain tribe and the history of that tribe. So you've got tribes that even transcend from between like Kuwait and Saudi. And that's something like I really enjoy listening to people talking about this specific tribe they come from, because that seems to be a big part of identity here, whereas it's not something we particularly have in England.
I don't think it applies to all Kuwaiti society though. Identifying with your tribe. I mean, in the case of my family, we identify much more with Kuwait and the sense of community that the family has, and possibly the people. But in terms of identifying with the tribe, that was hundreds of years ago for us. So really it's not that relevant. That's more of a new phenomenon in Kuwait that has happened over the last 30, 40 years. Everybody will know what tribe they might originate from, but there's very little link to them. So there's different segments of society.
Yeah, but there's still some families, like for example, the weddings when you dance with a sword. That's only for some.
That's a cultural, yeah.
But it's for some, from what I understand, it's for several families who come from one tribe. They still practice that at their weddings, whereas other families who don't come from that tribe won't. You correct me if I'm wrong. This is just because I've always tried to listen. Likewise, you've got some families who have other traditions. Like there's a particular dance, and I think it's in this issue. And it's a dance that goes back like hundreds of years, and I want to say it's Daha, to her, and it's still performed at some weddings from the family of that tribe. For me, I find that really interesting. It's kind of like what's the Scottish dance? There's a Scottish dance they still do at weddings as well. But it's only done if you have that connection to Scotland. Same thing with the Irish. Like, part of my family will do the Irish dance at some of our weddings, but it's not across the whole family.
So is culture important? I mean, why should we tap into our culture as a way to develop? I mean, is that something we should worry about? Are we losing our sense of identity in Kuwait? What are our biggest challenges? Do we only resort to religion as a source of identity, or should we look beyond? Should our university be teaching architecture based on climate? Should our schools be teaching object design based on nomadism? Or should we ignore that and just copy the schools in the West and replicate what they have so that we produce what they have? I mean, what is your feeling? Where do you see the future of Kuwait going? Where would you like to see it going?